Silence. That's what they wanted, to silence him, to erase him, to make the world forget that he ever existed, to snuff out the hope he inspired in millions. They believed that by locking him away, by isolating him from the world, they could extinguish the movement he had built. But history has shown, time and again, that ideas do not die so easily. And neither does courage. They underestimated her. They miscalculated. In their quest to silence one voice, they awakened another, one just as powerful, just as relentless. Yulia Navalnaya, once content to stand in the background, now stood at the very front, her resolve unbreakable. They forgot that behind every great man stands a woman, often unseen, unheard. But Yulia was never just a shadow. She was the quiet force, the steady hand, the unwavering presence that gave strength when hope seemed lost. A woman of quiet strength, unwavering loyalty, and fierce love. Her courage was not loud, but it was unyielding. Through every trial, every threat, every heartbreak, she stood tall, her love for her husband and her country burning brighter than fear. A woman named Yulia Navalnaya, a name that would soon echo far beyond the walls of her home, far beyond the borders of Russia. His voice may have been silenced, cruelly and unjustly, within the cold walls of a Russian prison. But the spirit of resistance cannot be caged. The love and hope he inspired lived on, in her and in all those who refused to forget. From the ashes of tragedy her voice rose, stronger, clearer, more determined. She spoke not just for herself, but for all those who had been silenced, for all those who still dared to dream of a better future. No longer content to be the quiet force behind the scenes, Yulia stepped into the harsh glare of the spotlight. She faced the world with unwavering resolve, her words cutting through the noise, her presence impossible to ignore. Her husband's silencing became her awakening, the pain she carried became her power. She transformed grief into action, and loss into a rallying cry for justice. She would be his voice, his shield, his legacy. She would not let his sacrifice be in vain. She would carry his message forward, inspiring others to stand up, to speak out, to hope. The woman Putin feared most, not because of her anger, but because of her hope. Because she proved that even in the darkest times, a single voice, awakened, can change the world. Yulia Navalnaya was not born to be a revolutionary. Her story began far from the glare of political spotlights, in the quiet corners of Moscow, where the rhythms of daily life were shaped by the hopes and uncertainties of a country in transition. As a child, Yulia was thoughtful and observant, growing up in a family that valued education and resilience. She learned early on to navigate the complexities of a society still reeling from the echoes of the Soviet era, where dreams were often tempered by reality. Hers was a life of quiet normalcy in the tumultuous years after the fall of the Soviet Union. The city around her was changing rapidly, old certainties crumbling, new opportunities emerging, and the future uncertain for so many. Yulia found comfort in the familiar routines of family, friends, and study, even as the world outside seemed to shift beneath her feet. Born in 1976 in Moscow, she studied economics, a path that promised stability, not the turbulence of politics. At university, Yulia was known for her diligence and her quiet determination. She immersed herself in her studies, believing that a solid education would be her ticket to a secure and predictable future. She dreamed of a life where she could build a career, support her family, and perhaps travel beyond the borders of her homeland. Then came Alexei. Charismatic, ambitious, and with a voice that resonated with a deep-seated yearning for change, Alexei Navalny was a force of nature. He was unlike anyone Yulia had ever met. Restless, passionate, and unafraid to challenge the status quo. His energy was infectious, and his vision for a better Russia was both inspiring and daunting. They met in the late 1990s, drawn together by an undeniable spark. Their connection was immediate, a meeting of minds and hearts that transcended the ordinary. Together, they navigated the uncertainties of young adulthood, supporting each other through the challenges of a rapidly changing society. Their 2000 wedding marked not just the union of two lives, but the fusion of two paths. Hers, ordinary and predictable; his, destined to challenge the very foundation of their nation. It was a day filled with hope and promise, a celebration of love and partnership, even as the seeds of future struggles were quietly being sown. Their early years were a mix of domesticity and burgeoning activism. While Yulia cherished the simple joys of home, shared meals, laughter, and the warmth of family, she also witnessed Alexei's growing commitment to exposing corruption and injustice. The boundaries between private life and public struggle began to blur, as their home became a refuge and a headquarters for hope. Yulia, the steadfast wife and dedicated mother to their two children, provided the anchor as Alexei's fight against corruption and injustice gained momentum. She balanced the demands of motherhood with the growing pressures of public life, shielding her children from the chaos while standing firmly by her husband's side. Her strength was quiet but unyielding, a source of comfort and stability for her family. She was the silent force behind his unwavering resolve, creating a haven of normalcy amidst the storm that was their life. In the face of adversity, Yulia's courage and resilience became the bedrock upon which her family stood. Though she never sought the spotlight, her journey from quiet student to the heart of a movement would ultimately change not only her own destiny, but the course of Russian history itself. August 20th, 2020. A date that would forever divide Yulia Navalnaya's life into a before and an after. The world was still reeling from the pandemic, but for Yulia, a far more personal crisis was about to unfold. One that would test the very limits of her courage and resolve. That morning Yulia was just another wife and mother, her thoughts occupied by the everyday worries of family and work. But as the hours ticked by, a single phone call shattered her world. The news was devastating. Her husband, Alexei Navalny, had collapsed on a flight, his life hanging by a thread. In an instant, Yulia's life was transformed. The ordinary routines of her day dissolved, replaced by a frantic race against time. She rushed to the hospital, her heart pounding, not knowing if she would ever see Alexei alive again. The world she knew had been upended, and she was thrust into a nightmare from which there was no waking. The news of Alexei's poisoning spread like wildfire, sending shockwaves through Russia and beyond. For Yulia, the horror was deeply personal. She watched, numb with fear, as doctors fought to save her husband's life. The world's eyes turned to her, searching for answers, for hope, for strength. But Yulia refused to be paralyzed by fear. Instead, she became a force of nature, channeling her anguish into action. She stood by Alexei's bedside, refusing to leave his side, and then stepped out into the glare of the world's media, her voice steady, her resolve unbreakable. She demanded answers, demanded justice, and demanded that her husband be given a fighting chance. Yulia confronted the Kremlin head-on, insisting on Alexei's evacuation to Germany for treatment. She did not flinch, even as she accused Vladimir Putin himself of orchestrating the attack. Her words echoed around the globe, a challenge to power spoken with unwavering conviction. In those tense days, Yulia became the face of defiance, her courage inspiring millions. The world watched as Yulia Navalnaya was transformed before their eyes. No longer just a supportive spouse in the background, she emerged as a leader in her own right, her determination shining through every public appearance, every statement to the press. The quiet housewife, once content to remain out of the spotlight, was gone. In her place stood a woman who had discovered a new sense of purpose, forged in the crucible of crisis. Her love for her family, her fear for her husband, and her outrage at the injustice she faced all combined to reveal a strength she never knew she possessed. Yulia Navalnaya became a symbol of resilience, a warrior who refused to back down in the face of overwhelming odds. She walked into the unknown, guided by love and a dawning realization that she could and would stand up to power. In the darkest moment of her life, Yulia Navalnaya found her voice. And in doing so, she inspired a nation and the world to believe in the power of courage, love, and the unbreakable human spirit. Alexei survived the poisoning, but their ordeal was far from over. His return to Russia in 2021 was met with immediate arrest, a sham trial, and imprisonment. It was a cruel charade, a blatant attempt to silence the man who dared to challenge the Kremlin. Through it all, Yulia remained his pillar of strength. She visited him in prison, her every visit a defiant act of love and defiance. She rallied international pressure, her voice growing stronger, her message resonating far beyond the borders of Russia. She became a beacon of hope for the millions who yearned for a better Russia, a Russia free from fear and oppression. February 16, 2024, a date forever seared into the world's memory. Alexei Navalny, Russia's most prominent opposition leader, was dead. Murdered, whispered the world, silenced forever within the cold, unforgiving walls of a Russian prison. The world mourned, but Yulia did not allow herself the luxury of grief, not yet. Her voice, hoarse with sorrow but resolute, echoed across the globe, accusing Putin of her husband's murder. She became the voice of a nation silenced, her grief intertwined with a fierce determination to ensure that Alexei's death would not be in vain. In the wake of unimaginable loss, Yulia Navalnaya did something extraordinary. She channeled her grief, her rage, and her love into a powerful force for change. In April 2025, she launched Russia Without Fear, a global campaign with a simple yet powerful aim to unite the Russian opposition, both within the country and in exile. "They can kill the man," she declared, her voice unwavering, "but not the dream." Her words resonated with millions, becoming a rallying cry for a nation yearning for freedom. The woman who once stood quietly in the shadows had become a symbol of hope, her voice a beacon of defiance against the encroaching darkness. Her courage has come at a steep price. Living in exile, constantly looking over her shoulder, Yulia knows that she, too, is a target. The Russian government, threatened by her growing influence, has unleashed its arsenal of intimidation. Surveillance, smear campaigns, and veiled threats. The Kremlin's message is clear: silence is the only option. But Yulia refuses to be silenced. "They tried to murder my husband," she declared, her voice ringing with defiance. "They will not break us." Her words are a testament to her unwavering spirit, a testament to the power of one woman standing up to a dictator. Today, Yulia Navalnaya stands as a symbol of hope for a nation yearning for change. She has met with world leaders, her quiet dignity and powerful message swaying opinions and garnering support for the Russian opposition. She is a constant thorn in the side of the Kremlin, a reminder that the spirit of resistance is alive and well. Yet the question remains, what does the future hold for Yulia Navalnaya? Will she return to Russia, risking imprisonment or worse to lead the fight for freedom from within? Will she continue to be a powerful voice from exile, a symbol of hope and defiance? Only time will tell what the future holds for Yulia Navalnaya. Is she Russia's last hope, a flickering candle in the encroaching darkness? Or is she the next leader, the one destined to fulfill her husband's legacy and lead Russia out of the shadows of authoritarianism and into the light of democracy? One thing is certain, Yulia Navalnaya's journey is far from over. Her courage, her resilience, and her unwavering commitment to a free and democratic Russia continue to inspire the world. Hers is a story of love, loss, and the indomitable spirit of one woman who dared to stand up to a dictator.